Since the 1970s, Stephen King has created some of the most iconic monsters in horror history thanks to 75-plus books. If you are afraid of vampires, Salem's Lot is sure to haunt your nightmares. If werewolves give you chills, check out Cycle of the Werewolf. King has written about terrifying psychopaths aplenty, whether they be possessed by the supernatural or simply crazy, from The Shining to Misery. In 1986, Stephen King wrote a novel that took everything we fear and combined it into one chilling villain with it. Arguably his most famous novel, and with successful miniseries and feature film adaptations, it succeeds by having great characters, but none of it works without an antagonist who can become anything you're afraid of. Because of that, the creature in it is the perfect monster, but its scariest form is that of Pennywise the clown. That simple but effective choice found its roots in several experiences for King, from childhood awe and fears to a fast food pitchman and a fateful plane ride. What makes Pennywise so terrifying in it? Most monsters are monsters because they look like them. If we see a machete-wielding madman in the woods wearing a hockey mask, we're going to run. If we were to ever come across a real vampire or werewolf, our brains automatically tell us to get out of there before we get ripped apart. Clowns are an odd fear to have because they're harmless, a childhood form of entertainment meant to bring joy. Clowns smile and do magic tricks, all to make kids smile and laugh. What's to be scared of about that? Still, many of us are truly terrified of clowns, so much so that it's a phobia with a name called coulrophobia. According to a 2023 study done by Scientific American, 53% of respondents admitted to being scared of clowns. The origins of that fear come from the clown's exaggerated facial expressions, which our brains tell us are a threatening gesture, the white and red makeup, which reminds us of death and blood, and how that makeup makes the person behind it disappear, turning the clown into something not human. Our brains can't properly process that distortion, similar to why we have the same fear of dolls. King went on to explain that if he was a sick kid in a hospital and a clown came into his room to cheer him up, he'd be scared to death. Kids are scared of clowns. If adults have that fear, imagine how terrifying it is for a child, whose brains are still learning and don't understand their surroundings as well as an adult does. A grown-up knows their fear of clowns is silly, that this white-faced person isn't going to attack them, but a child might really think that a clown is going to hurt them. During a 2013 event with Nicole Schroeder, King explained how Pennywise in it came to be. He discussed that he wanted to write a book that had all the classic monsters in it, but decided he wanted one creature so scary that you scream just to look at it. King said, "So I thought to myself, what scares children more than anything else in the world?" And the answer was clowns. In a 2005 appearance on Late Night with Conan O'Brien, King spoke of the fear kids have of seeing clowns at a circus, saying, "Their faces were dead white, their mouths were red, as though they were full of blood, they're all screaming, their eyes are huge." What's not to like? It's rare to see a popular clown as a non-scary form of entertainment these days. You can thank Stephen King for that, as the author's creation of Pennywise ruined anything even remotely fun about clowns. Decades ago, back in the 70s and 80s, however, clowns did big business. Bozo the Clown was on millions of television screens once upon a time, making kids laugh rather than scream. Take a look at him, and you can see Tim Curry and Bill Skarsgård's versions of Pennywise. As creepy as Bozo the Clown can unintentionally be, King found inspiration for Pennywise in a more mainstream and even less threatening clown, Ronald McDonald, the spokesman for McDonald's. Sadly, kids today don't see Ronald McDonald trying to sell them hamburgers, but for people of a certain age, he was just as popular as Mickey Mouse. King thought the guy was being weird and asked him where he really came from, only to find out there is a real place called McDonald Land and Ronald was there to open a new restaurant. The author called it a surreal moment, and it had to be even for him. Clowns are scary because of the contrast between what we see and how we process it. They smile and laugh, but we interpret it as menacing. They paint their mouths red to make their smiles look bigger, but we see blood. They paint their faces white to make them more expressive, but we see death. And sometimes, in their full gear, they just drink a gin and tonic on an airplane and say they're from McDonald Land. Now that is scary. 2017's it is available to stream on Netflix in the US.